And welcome to our online meeting talking about the Southwest area neighborhood. We appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight. This is obviously a unique situation that we are in with COVID-19, and this is the best method that we have had to come before you and try to obtain some information from the neighborhood concerning the Southwest area. There was obviously some interest with the temple going in and the announcement, and since then the City Council has approved and adopted the PD 50 zone, which allows the temple to go in at the location that was previously outlined. And so tonight we're here to discuss some options to the neighborhood general plan for the Southwest area. I appreciate you in attendance and look forward to addressing the questions. First, I'd just like to say welcome, and we appreciate your opportunity to come here. We know that you have busy lives, and we're now starting to open up and be able to get out and do some other things, but know that this is the best option that we have right now with the fact that we can't meet together in groups larger than 20. And so this is why we're here today. The City Council has asked us to continue this process to move forward with obtaining information from the neighbors, trying to consider which options to present to the City Council. And we will be presenting these options to you tonight, and looking forward to presenting to the City Council, as we'll explain later in the chat, of when we're going to meet with them on the 26th of this month to discuss what we find out tonight. So those that have logged on to Zoom, obviously this is a all electronic presentation. The microphones and videos are not available to you. You'll be able to hear me and see me, but you will not. I cannot see you, nor can we hear you through the microphones. You'll have to use the Q&A option at the bottom of the screen. Not the chat feature, but the question and answer option. You can do upload questions, and we'll do our best during this presentation to answer the questions. Those that won't be or cannot be addressed in the time slot that we have will be addressed online at orem.org/Southwest area. You'll be able to not only watch the video, but also the questions that come up that we're not able to address. Like I say, this presentation is being recorded and will be posted on the website for your preview. If you want to address questions at planning@orem.org, that's also an avenue. During this live session, the Q&A option is the best option. Planning@orem.org is something we'll continue to review up until the time we review with the City Council. So as we get started, we want to just show what is currently approved in the Southwest area. Oh, let me back up. We have a poll question. So as part of this presentation, we'll have several poll questions. We're going to start with a first question that's kind of going to break the ice, hopefully, and everybody will get a chance to vote and see how this works. And as we go through, we'll try to get your opinion. We'll leave this open for about 30 seconds. So if you can vote for your favorite, big blue. Oh, wait, I did say big blue. Vote for your favorite mascot. We will then just see how this goes. We'll show you how this poll works. We'll show you the results. And then as we go through this process tonight, we'll also have other questions and be able to get live feedback from those that are participating. So there's the results. Looks like Cosmo the Cougar was in first place. No votes for the USU Big Blue. Darn. All right, let's move on. Question number 2. Poll number 2, excuse me, before we get started in there. So were you aware of the current general plan included options for light industrial and single-family homes in the Southwest area, which we'll explain, but were you aware that those two options are currently available in the general plan that we have adopted currently? Looks like about 68% of you say yes, 18% roughly say no, and 14% somewhat. So here are the results. Looks like a majority of you understood that there is currently a general plan that does allow for industrial and single-family homes in the Southwest area. Okay, hold on. Do you have the screen control? Apologize for my PowerPoint not seeming to work. Hold on one second here. There we go. Okay, so I just want to go over and explain what the current land use plan is. I do have a laser pointer that I'm going to have on the screen, so it'll help you follow along with what I'm going to explain. Just for orientation, this upper area that's being circled now, rural density residential, is the location of the new temple site. The temple will be located on the eastern side, the stake center on the western side, with the street connection coming this direction. For orientation, this is Geneva Road, currently runs this direction here. This map does show a current alignment of the Lakeview Parkway, which will come this way, and Geneva Road will end up tying into that. What we're proposing, or what showing tonight, is currently this area here that you see on the west between Geneva Road and I-15 and the tracks is low density residential. And that is an option currently. This area down south towards 2000 South is also low density residential. And this is where the current development is going in right now. The Lakeview fields at Lakeview, this area right here, which is indicated as light industrial. That is a proposed change that we'll make going forward to medium density, because that has already been rezoned and approved and under development right now. There is a development in this location for an M1 light industrial development that is currently in the process. The rest of these areas that you can see on the west side of Geneva Road are light industrial. There is a corner here at 2000 and the intersection of Lakeview Parkway, which could potentially be a community commercial. And then you see the professional services, which is the autistic school. That's down at the location, Cherry Hill Farms, which is under a conservation easement at this location, and then this location. These two areas over here, this would be the Klinger area that's under an agricultural easement with Utah County. This is a conservation easement, which is also owned by the Cherry Hill Farm. Those two are not currently annexed into the city, as well as this future potential property here is also owned by a property owner that has not been annexed into the city. So these areas that you see here are currently not annexed. What we're talking about tonight is the areas that are annexed. So that's what we're looking at tonight. There is part of the general plan. This is low density residential. Between the tracks, that's something that we will actually fix as we go forward to make this entire swath between the two tracks light industrial. The densities as I go through that. So light industrial is up to 4 units per acre. Light industrial is the same, similar at 4 units per acre. The Lakeview Parkway units is a development that has about 12 units per acre currently. There is currently a subdivision at this location that's under development that is under the 4 units per acre also. So let's do another poll question. So how familiar are you with the general plan? Looks like we have a few Parks and Rec fans. That's good. So it looks like the majority are familiar with the general plan and why it's important. And that's why we're here tonight to explain some proposals as we try to develop or look at ways to redo the general plan in relationship to the new LDS temple that's being built. And we'll try to explain that as we go forward. So do we have another question? So question 3, do you know the difference between the general plan and zoning? So the majority of you do know what that is, but I will explain a little bit once we finish with this polling. It looks like roughly 75% of you understand the difference between the general plan and the zoning. Some may have some questions about that. If I can explain, the general plan is a long vision plan that's a basically 20 to 25 year look at how the city wants to develop that. So the LDR, for example, it means low density residential, but that is not the zone that implements low density residential. An R8, an R75, R12, 12,000 square feet or 8,000 square foot lots, that's what implements the general plan. General plan just breaks that into categories and lists in that general plan what zones are allowed to fit under that general plan designation. And so that's the difference. The general plan is an overall long-term vision for the city. The zoning is what implements the vision through zoning, and the zoning is what actually allows a developer or an individual to actually construct units or a home on a property. The general plan does not allow for that. It's the zone that does that. Okay, so let's move on to option 1. Option 1 is has a couple different options that we're looking at. Currently, as you recall, I'm circling here the LDR. It's currently designated on the general plan as low density residential. The option that the staff is looking at is the opportunity for property owners to develop it in a PRD, so planned residential development. So with a / southwest would be a unique PRD zone that we would create for the southwest area. So right now we allow PRDs throughout the city in any zone that wants, any residential zone that wants to come in and go through a rezoning process to a PRD zone. We do allow that currently. The southwest area PRD zone would be specific to this area and would allow townhouse units, whereas now we don't allow townhouse style units in a PRD. We do allow 2 stories, but they're limited as far as the overall height and the overall ability to access that full 2nd story. Right now, PRD only allows 75% of the upper floor to be used. So if you have a 2nd story, you cannot have a basement. Typically what we see in PRDs is a full basement and 1 level. So most of the PRDs you see, and I'll have a couple examples as we move forward, are PRDs that typically have a 1 story with a basement. A PRD Southwest would allow them to do 2 full stories in a townhouse style unit. We'll have some examples as we go through that. The other change to this was to change this area here down by 2000 South to that LDR Southwest, which would allow a PRD as well. And then we've looked at the corner of 2000 and Geneva Road as a possibility to go to community commercial, which would allow potentially a commercial C2 zone, which we have gas station, things like that, convenience stores, stuff in that designation. Community commercial also does support a C1 zone, which is more of an office zone and not a retail zone. And then we propose in this option, at least, to keep this area that you see north of the Lakeview Fields development as light industrial. And in the future, this area here, if and when it does get annexed, we would propose that that stay light industrial for the expansion of the Orem Business Park that you see here. Would be able to expand south with a road and other things that would basically allow future expansion of that and allow some job creation and other things to be brought into this area to increase the opportunity for people to have jobs. And then of course this reflects the light industrial that we want between the tracks, which we will make that change. I think regardless of the option that we pick forward, that will stay constant. We will request that that be changed to light industrial. This will be updated to medium density residential to reflect the land use that's currently under construction at that point. So those are the two constant changes. These are the reflect the proposals that are part of option 1. Let's go on to this is not working. There we go. So just an update on what, we talked about this briefly already, the existing PRD zone. I know this is small text, so I'll basically show you, paraphrase what we're talking about. A PRD right now, anywhere in the city through a council rezone can have up to 7 units as an outright density. Assuming it gets approved, there is an ability to get a 3-unit bonus if somebody takes out a dilapidated or older structure, residential structure, with a maximum density of 8 units per acre. So what we're proposing with this new PRD/Southwest is very similar to the existing PRD zone, allowing up to the 8 units per acre. The difference being between the existing current PRD and the proposed Southwest PRD is, like I said, a townhouse style. That doesn't mean somebody couldn't do a standard PRD. They could also develop it as single family residential if that's what they choose. But then it would also give them an option to seek a rezone to a PRD/SW Southwest to allow them to do the townhouse styles up to the 35-foot request. These are just a couple of examples of current PRDs that we have in the city. Peach Haven, which is about 8th West on Center Street roughly, was built probably, I don't even know the date, probably 5-6 years, maybe longer, 10 years ago. You can see they're twin homes, single story with a full basement. Evergreen East, which is east of the city center here, which is built back in the probably 80s. Our twin home developments, which are single story with a full basement as well. The colonies that you see on this right side of your screen was built, they're up by 800 North, and they were built many years ago, but this kind of gives you a style of a townhouse that was approved as a PRD years ago. That's currently not the option that somebody can do. So the PRD standard would be similar to this type of development, not necessarily the architecture, but the height and the massing would be something that would be allowed in the Southwest PRD. These are examples of townhomes that we took pictures of out in Vineyard, just as an example of a townhouse style that we are not necessarily recommending, but showing that this is the type of style of home that the Southwest PRD would allow. These are pictures of the Daybreak development up in South Jordan, just to give you some different types of similar densities that would allow a PRD type style, but allow some different elevations and other opportunities for developers. A PRD does equal a density increase of up to 7 to 8 units per acre. The low density residential has a max of 4 units per acre. So the density does increase with a PRD, but it does have a cap of up to 8 units, depending on how they can make that happen. Typically, a developer in the PRDs that we've had in the past 20 years have not been able to reach the capacity of the 7 or 8 maximum units per acre. You're looking typically with all the roads and landscaping requirements. Developers typically will get about upwards of 6, maybe a little higher, but it's very difficult to get as many units as the ordinance actually allows. So but there is a cap of 8 units per acre. Just a clarification of the Lakeview Fields, which is down now on South Geneva Road, is about 12 units per acre. So that's the difference between the PD that was approved back when this property was annexed versus what we are proposing as we go forward. If the City Council approves this option, would be a maximum of 8 units. So these are two other ideas. This is up in Lehigh. It has 3 units. You can see a door there, one here and one on this side. So that's actually a 3-unit complex. This one is also from Daybreak, which shows a different variety of home, which is also multiple units. There's one here, and then one around the corner. So that's actually a triplex as well. So do we have another question? Not yet. Okay. Let's go to option 2, just to show you what was proposed with option 2. The differences behind that, if you can see on your left, this is the constant, this is what's currently the land use plan for the southwest area. So as we go through these different options, you can see what was currently approved and what we're proposing in this option to change. As you recall, in the previous option, this was light industrial, and this portion was light industrial. What we're proposing is to this go a community commercial, so more of a commercial district where a potential grocery store, retail, other facilities can go in this location. You'd have the interchange of the Lakeview corridor and also the Geneva Road, which would come in. And then you've got the Temple site here. So that would be conducive to some type of commercial development. This portion would be low density residential, or the southwest potential up to 8 units per acre here, which would be adjacent to that. And then we would keep these low density residential southwest options here. And again, we'd keep constant the light industrial on the tracks and represent the MDR this location and the light industrial development that is currently in the process of being approved. So those are the changes that we're proposing in option 2. So a question that came through, and I'll try to address that. This is in the agricultural easement, and this will continue to be in the agricultural easement until such time as the owner either sells and decides to annex into the city of Orem, or the ag easement is withdrawn from the county. Right now, so we go back, let me just go back a few slides and show you that this is the agricultural easement. And right now, this is basically not being considered. We are proposing that if and when it does get annexed, that it would be a light industrial, and that would be conducive to the light industrial that we have in the Orem Business Park in this direction. So we are considering that if and when that does get developed, that would come into that type of land use going forward. We go back to, let's see, we just visited option 2. Now we're going to go to option 3, which basically we are taking this area here that we proposed, the light industrial southwest, and making that into the commercial as well. So that this whole corner or intersection or area that would be intersect the Lakeview Parkway and the Geneva Road would be all commercial. This is brought back here, the commercial on the corner, and these would stay constant with the low density residential and southwest area as well. Sorry, I'm trying to address some questions here, so give me just 1 second. So we do know that you've submitted some questions, and we'll try, once we get this presentation done, to address all the questions that you have. And hopefully during this presentation, we'll be able to address that. Any of those, like I said at the beginning, that isn't addressed, we will address it through written statements and post those on our website for you to address. And we will, any comment that we receive will also be addressed with the City Council. They will get a packet that includes all the comments, all the questions, all the suggestions, and other things that we glean from this meeting will be presented to the City Council for their consideration as we go forward. Option 4, actually, let's go back to question option 3. We do have another poll question. So if commercial was permitted in the general plan update, what would you like to see? Select all that apply. Would you like to see any of those that are listed in that commercial area? Looks like grocery stores, small local retail shops are kind of leading the way right now. Mixed use is also an option. Office is a good user. Looks like industrial and warehouse may not be the best use for that specific location. Okay, let's see the results. on that. So thank you for taking that question. Let's move on to option 5. Excuse me, option 4. So in option 4, we expanded the commercial over to the east of Geneva Road to make more of a larger corridor. As you recall, Geneva Road eventually will be teed into the Lakeview Parkway, and that would leave a potential cul-de-sac or some type of local street that somebody could develop onto, whether you have on-street parking and other types of commercial. So we've kind of, as a buffer, looked at the option of including both sides of Geneva in this area. When this does get connected, and this then would become an opportunity for a commercial and a buffer for areas that are developed on the east side of that location. This one does also include the corner, community commercial at the corner. It does show some medium density at this location as a buffer to act between that as well. And of course, constant light industrial and the medium density of this location. Community commercial was on the original plan here, and we propose to keep that on all the different options. That will stay consistent. Now, relating to traffic, this is Geneva Road is a UDOT controlled, it's a state highway. This Lakeview corridor, Lakeview Parkway, would also be a UDOT controlled corridor. It does have a direct access down to the Provo Airport. So this would be a significant access as it comes through and access the University Parkway at this location. So there would be a lot of access, and the widening and all that would be determined by UDOT as they move forward with studying the different corridors. The Temple has caused them to think about how this is going to be improved, and then of course with the implementation of this parkway, that'll cause them to consider how this moves forward. So traffic will be a consideration as we look at this. UDOT definitely will be involved, as well as our city engineer. That's how this goes forward. But the cross-section and alignment will be determined as we move forward as things develop. So we have another poll question. So select all the items you would like to see in the Southwest area. So are there specific things that you'd like to see in the Southwest area as we look at implementing this or reviewing it with the City Council? What things that may or may not be more amenable to the area? So it looks like parks is trail network. Keeping it low density looks like is popular as well. We even have some votes for all of the above, which is a mix of all the different uses that you see. Let's go ahead and end that. So it looks like parks at 77% lead out. Keeping it low density or having a lot of low density residential is also a winner. Trail network and some commercial, some of all the above. So there's a mix, but the leading is keeping it low density and implementing some parks and trails into the system as well. So very good comments. Let's go to the next slide. There we go. So as part of our general plan update, we would like to consider a trails and connection map. As you can see on this slide, it outlines the overall area. There is several different trails that we'd like to include. One being the Lakeview Parkway Trail, which would connect in the Geneva Road. There is a Geneva Road Trail as well that we would like to connect into that would then take it all the way down and connect into Provo. Provo High School, as you know, is just south of 2000 South in Provo. Geneva Trail would be another one that we'd like to implement, as you can see along Geneva Road. rail trail, which follows the UTA rail on the backside of these properties. We'd also like to implement as part of the general plan. So when a developer comes in to develop, they would need to address not only the rail trail, the Geneva Road Trail, or if they have frontage on Lakeview Parkway, they would have to include that as well. But there is a future Wacara Way Trail, which would actually connect over to Utah Lake, and that would be a lake trail that goes north and south. It would be referred to as Wacara Way. And in addition to that, we'd like, you can see these small little blue connections. These are not specific locations, but they're indications that we would like to see some cross connections between the rail trail and the Geneva Trail as developers develop, so that people can access this area through the trail system. In addition, 2000 South, which does go under the freeway and could connect into the Sand Hill Road Trail, which then would connect up to UVU and others. So a lot of these trails, we would want to make sure that that is part of a development when they come in. And as part of adding this to the general plan, it would give us the ability to require these developers or whoever comes in to develop the property to include that trail system as part of their development. So as part of the staff, we would definitely want to encourage these trails to be part of the general plan. We have discussed this with the City Council on a couple of different occasions, and this would be part of our proposal as we move forward, as we select the couple options based on this meeting tonight. This will be a part of those options. Let's see, we have another poll question. 2 questions. So how important is it to have a city park in the southwest area? We know we have a park over across, west of I-15, or east of I-15, excuse me. How important is it to have one in this area as developers come in and then things get developed, to have a local park? So let's go ahead and stop that. Looks like we have 67% say it's very important, 15% say it's somewhat important, 15 not important, and 4% no opinion. So looks like it's a very important option to have a park in this area as we move forward. So the trail system and park system would be a positive thing for this area. So we'll go on to another poll question. Do you support the trail systems proposed being added to the general plan for the southwest area? So the map that you see with the rail trail, the Geneva Trail, the Lakeview Parkway Trail, and the connection over to Sand Hill Road, are those important, and do you support those being added to the general plan? Okay. Looks like the majority, 64% say yes, that is, they would support. So we appreciate that. 24% somewhat, 8% say no, and 4% have no opinion. So it looks like the majority would support this trail plan going as part of our general plan. So thank you for that vote. So let's go on to next step. So those are the options, and we'll run through those quick. I just want to go out these or run back through them after we go through these points. The next step. So the city council will do a discussion based on the findings that we have tonight, from your input, your questions from online, and things that we can obtain, and take this to the city council, show them the options that we presented to you tonight, and get their input and how we can then move forward if they want us to move forward. One of the options is to keep this the way it is right now, to make no changes to the general plan. And then we have 4 additional options that we will move forward with that. And that will start on the 26th when we go to the city council. In addition, an additional survey will be available on our webpage early next week. We do have some other questions that we couldn't fit into the surveys tonight that make more sense as you have opportunity or time to think about it. So look on this page, orem.org/southwest area, for an additional button that would allow you to then take an additional survey. Or if you know people that have not been able to attend tonight, they can be a part of the survey by using or taking the survey that will be added to the webpage. So going forward after the 26th review of the City Council, we will move forward with a general plan public hearing process, assuming that we get the go-ahead from the City Council to make that change. That will be a process that goes to the Planning Commission and City Council. They're both public hearings. All the residents will be notified of that process. In addition to that, there is an impact fee analysis and impact fee facilities plan that was part of the original annexation of this area. That will need to be amended if and when the council decides to increase the density. Based on the analysis that was done, it was developed more for low density impact, and so we would have to adjust that as well as part of that option going forward. So that would be in addition to or connecting in conjunction with that general plan process, and that would need to be done prior to implementing the general plan. They're in the process, the city is in the process of upgrading and revising some of their lift stations. A lot of this does flow into lift stations that is lifted into the sewer treatment plant, and those would most likely need to be looked at to make sure they're being redesigned properly. Last I heard, the city is looking at upsizing some of those to fit future capacity, not necessarily for this area, but in general area. So that is something we'd have to consider as well. And then part of that, the rezones would also then, like the general plan outlines the zoning type, then the rezone would have to be actually implemented to implement the general plan. And so that would be another process. So these are the steps that would be required as we go through that process. And so it will take several months to get through the process, and up and when the developer or property owner could then come in and rezone properties. So going forward, if you look next week, take an additional survey, we will include anything that we receive next week into our discussion with the City Council on the 26th as we move forward. So we have a few questions before we end. Questions first. Poll questions. Let's do the poll questions. So question number 8, how important is it to you to address housing affordability in the Southwest area? As you know, the country in general and the state has some issues with low density or affordable housing. Is it important for the city to consider this type of housing in the Southwest area? So that question looks like 43% say it's very important, 22% somewhat important, and 35% not important. So it looks like we all have an opinion though, so that's good. Nobody had no opinion. Let's go on to the next question. Question number 9, how important is it to you to, we just had that question. Were the drafted maps images helpful? So the maps that we've looked at tonight, or the ones that we provided at the Southwest area, were they helpful in understanding what we were doing and moving forward? So it looks like the majority say yes, they were helpful, 69%. So thank you for that feedback. And then question 10, what is the website? Was the website related to the Southwest area helpful? So as we had opportunity, you had opportunity to scroll through these different options to understand what was there with the verbiage and language that was there to help you understand it. Was it helpful? And if there's something that we can do that would make it better, if you could use the question and answer or the email and let us know suggestions as we move forward with this type of neighborhood meeting, we can address those moving forward. So it looks like the majority said yes. So hopefully this will be helpful to you as we go forward with that. And we will share the same information, like I said, with the City Council. So that is our presentation. I would like to address as many questions as we can. So a couple questions. In other words, so I'm just going to read what has been presented with the Q&A. In other words, a PRD, this is the question, sorry. In other words, a PRD equates to a departure from the current plan by increasing residential density. So the PRD / Southwest would allow an increase in density. That is correct. Currently, the PRD, the low density residential LDR zone allows up to 4 units per acre. So the PRD zone, which currently is allowed anywhere in the city, provided the City Council does rezone the property, would be allowed in that Southwest area if the general plan is updated to the Southwest area, which would allow up to 8 units per acre. So yes, it would increase. The next question, with a tempo increasing traffic to the area that already has serious traffic density problems on Geneva Road, why would we want to increase residential density? And that is a good question. That is the question that will be addressed by UDOT Transportation Authority, as they look at widening or improving the street capacity with the implementation of the Lakeview Parkway and other facilities in that area that will allow additional traffic capacity and will allow hopefully to resolve some of the issues that you may be feeling now with the narrowness of Geneva Road. With the widening and these other developments, that road will be widened and additional traffic will be, the traffic issues will be lessened as the improvements are made. Next question. About the plans that include the CC zone, why is the site proposed community commercial zone adjacent to the LDR zone? Since this would hopefully draw some commercial activity, wouldn't it make more sense to have denser housing nearby the intensive economic activity? So I'm assuming, I can get my things to go. There is a buffer if you looked at other developments. So let's say the Center Street here in Orem with the Smiths, residential is directly behind that. So there are ways that we could implement a community commercial with buffered areas. If you look at on the corner 8th North and 8th East, I forgot the grocery store's name. Harmon's, yes. That is right on the northeast and the south of that property is residential homes. So there are ways that we can implement an ordinance that would allow a mix of those uses and not be, too imposing as we go forward. So most cities are developed with a mixed use or at least some transition between commercial and residential uses. So next question, there are agricultural easements in the area preventing eventual development. Why are those being ignored and development being planned directly adjacent to them? The agricultural easement is an active easement, but that does allow right now through the county, a property owner can remove that easement from the property. So it is not a permanent easement. It is an agricultural easement and can be function as an agricultural use as long as the property owner wants to, but there is an opportunity for the property owner eventually to sell or to redevelop themselves, and that agricultural easement can be removed. We're not ignoring the fact that that is there, but there are other properties that are wanting to move forward with development, and so that's why we're moving forward with the general plan to make that a possibility for them. The next question, what are the height restrictions in the MDR areas? What zoning does it equate to? So the PRD is actually a zone. Right now, the PRD is planned residential development is a zone that goes through the City Council and is actually implemented on top of the property. Right now, a PRD allows a maximum height of 30 feet. We would propose between 30 and 35 feet the PRD Southwest. So that would allow that in the MDR zone. Next question, would 2000 South eventually be expanded to multiple lanes? And it looks like that would be most likely expanded. Right now it's a minor arterial. If it is, it will be a minor arterial. Expanding from 2 to 3 lanes in each direction. So that, or 3 lanes total, sorry. With a center turn lane and 2 lanes going in each direction. So Can the trail run over a conservation easement? That is a question that I don't think that if it's a conservation easement, I don't know that it can. That's something we would have to look at going forward. I know that conservation easement does limit what can be done, and typically it is agricultural purposes or things that are very limiting. Parks and other amenities may be allowed, but that's something we'd have to look into. How much commercial density in the Southwest area would be needed to be able to fund the ongoing maintenance obligations of the park and the trail system? The city doesn't use that, the density as the mechanism to maintain our parks. There is though an impact fee that's actually part of the city going forward that does implement on new development fees that are charged with the impact fees that would be used to do that. But as a city, we're not looking to increase density for the sole purpose of maintaining parks in the area. That's something that would be a function of the impact fees and general bond or general money, general fund that we have currently operating our parks. Which question are we at? How wide is the trail proposed? Right now on the Geneva Road north, that is a 10-foot, it is 10 feet, right? A 10-foot multi-purpose trail. So it'd probably be similar to that as we implement these trails, because we want to have bikes, pedestrians, and others be able to use that simultaneously. So 10 feet is probably the minimum that we would look at to use that as a multi-purpose trail. Are landowners responsible to put these proposed trail systems? These proposed trail systems. Also, we need to consider local food security. All the Orem orchards are being developed, and in some of the last active farms in the city, why can't we make that our priority? That is a good question. That's why, as far as the agriculture, that is up to property owners themselves. With the agricultural easement, the conservation easement, those owners have decided to keep that and maintain that as currently as farmland. But again, they can, at least the agricultural easement can be taken out and redeveloped. There are areas between Geneva Road and the railroad track that are ready to develop, and that's why we're going through this process to find out exactly the density that we want to, or the city feels comfortable in doing that. Our trails mentioned, So the first part of that question, are landowners responsible to put these trail systems in? And the answer would be yes. When a developer comes in to develop, whatever density it is, they would be required to implement those as part of their development through the approval process. Assuming we adopt it as a part of our general plan, then we would allow, as a city, require them to pay for those expenses. Only if they develop it, correct. So if you're maintaining it as a farm, that wouldn't be required at this point to put that implemented or put the trails in. Our trails mentioned walk, bike, or both. It would be both. It would be a mixed trail. With all the low density residential combined with a temple site, conservation easement, agriculture easement, autistic school, etc., the overall density of this area will be very low regardless of the general plan. How will the commercial be financially viable with this low of a density? And that would be up to, I guess, the owners of the commercial. So we have had some interest in doing some type of commercial development, whether that's a grocery store or other type of thing in that area. The south of 2000 into Provo, as you know, that west part of Provo does not have a grocery store, and the west part of Orem does not either. So it would make sense, and I think the population would be there to support some type of commercial development going forward. Why is there no option other than light industrial across from the temple? That is something that could be considered. The question is, if you have light industrial in the back, is there a buffer or a mechanism that we could have the frontage on that to be more of a residential or MDR? That is something that we could consider. But as we expand the property, the park going south and the roads coming out to Geneva Road, it may or may not be conducive to having development, but if it's a higher density, that might be something that we could look at and discuss with the city council. Why is staff recommending a limit? This is the next question. Why is staff recommending a limit of 8 units per acre when nearly every other temple site in Utah has higher density developments around it? So the southwest area is limited to a capacity of the infrastructure. There is a limited capacity with the sewer as it goes north. as far as lift stations and other things, and the overall density was kept at 4 units per acre. And we're considering now to upsize and increase some of that capacity to 8, but I don't know that the capacity is there to accommodate larger densities like you see in downtowns such as Ogden or Salt Lake, those type of things. This is not the area that we would want to have that higher density. We're looking at having that higher density more along the State Street corridor than we are down in this area. So as it relates to the traffic and other issues, we feel that the 8 units per acre is sufficient to accommodate that. In addition, as I'm being reminded, the City Council does want us to keep that density lower. They have recently approved the densities along State Street that allow in the districts along State to have that higher density, but want to keep other parts of the city that are relating to homes to be more of a lower density, which is where the PRD and other densities come into. So that's one reason why we are keeping it lower density. So another question that we've previously had, roughly what percentage of the proposed plan areas have interested parties waiting to develop? In other words, how soon would we expect to see these spaces fully utilized? We have had a few property owners that own and are ready to develop. They are proposed some plans that through this process, they want to see what the density will be. But we do have several property owners that want to develop. We also have several properties that don't want to develop. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but I would imagine within a few months of this being developed, or this general plan being updated, that we will see some rezoning and some development through the process. Next question, can you give an example of other community commercial zones in the city so we can better have an idea of what to expect from these locations? We're specifically concerned about building heights and light pollution. Along the corridor of 800 North, roughly between 1,000 and 1,400 East, there are some smaller C1 and PO zone developments up there that we would expect that would be the purpose of this community. So there'd be a low profile development, whether it's retail, whether it's office, it would be a 1 to 2 story development. So I would say if you have opportunity to go up to 8th North, towards the mouth of the canyon, you'll see some commercial developments up there that doesn't allow retail, but they are strictly offices, and that's kind of what we're envisioning those in the community commercial area. Okay, why not leave it at LDR with 4 units per acre? That is another option. Definitely one of the options that we're taking forward to the City Council is just leaving it the way it is. So as we go back to, let me see if I can go back to the map. If we go back to the existing general plan, that is one of the options. So there are 4 options that you see, but including in those 4 options is the 5th option is leaving it the same. So that is something the City Council will consider as we take these forward. Keeping it the same density will be one of those options, and the council will make the ultimate determination of whether we want to move forward with a modification to the general plan. Would the Southwest PRD allow for narrower streets in order to allow for more better feeling development similar to those near the South Jordan temples? So we do have a minimum standard as far as our local street, which is a 28-foot asphalt width. So there is what's called a sublocal street. It is a public street. All of our PRD zones require the streets to be public. That is the most narrow street that we would allow, which would be 28 feet of asphalt with curb gutter and then a separated sidewalk. So they would be smaller than a typical street that you see going down 8th North or Center Street, for example. A local street would be allowed in this area. Okay, a couple more questions that we have. I'm curious whether you would consider putting in a splash pad or small playground in the southwest area. So as far as the city is concerned, if there is a city park, that could be an option. We just, as you know, implemented a park at the Palisade Park, splash pad. So that is an option. They're not inexpensive, so it would depend on impact fees and other things to be able to use those funds to do that, but that could be a consideration moving forward. Next question, is there any discussion of future building of an elementary school in the area at some point? That, of course, is an Alpine School District decision. The Orem city itself does not have the ability to dictate schools, but that's something that Alpine would have to look into. As the population increases, the school children increase, that definitely would be something that they would want to consider. Next question, would the proposed commercial district leave open the possibility of mixed-use structures? And that's something that we definitely would consider. Like on State Street, we do have the ability to have a mixed use, whether you have commercial or office on the main floors and residential above, or vice versa, whether you have office on the top floor and residential below. That is definitely something that we could consider in this area as we develop the core commercial area, if that option is selected. So let me just go to that. So if we select, let's just say option 3, which allows that commercial core, that could be something that we could develop in the zoning ordinance as we implement that general plan designation as some type of mixed use, similar to what you see on State Street in our districts that we have. Let's see. I think those are the questions. Yeah, is that it? So just in closing, just to remind you that if you still have questions, you're welcome to call us directly. You're welcome to post questions at planning@orem.org. I would encourage you to go back to orem.org/southwest area to look at the additional survey and to continue to review if there's other areas, people in the area that haven't had a chance to do that, to be able to consider looking at these maps before we go the 26th to the City Council. Looks like we have one more question. Which proposed plan changes would promote increasing the tax base in the Southwest area? It's a good question. Yeah, if you look at how the tax structure is, residential typically does not bring, unless it's really high density residential, doesn't bring a lot of tax base into the city, although property taxes would be increased. Industrial developments, office developments, those types of developments with a property tax and other taxes that are associated with that bring in more revenue to the city. So increasing density doesn't necessarily equate more tax or increase in opportunity for the city. So we're not doing it specifically for tax purposes. It's more of how do we want this area to develop, and that's why we're moving forward with that, which is one of the reasons I think we're moving future light industrial here in the expansion of the Orem Park. That would probably be a more advantageous tax base for the city than it would be to have it as residential. So that is all the questions we have. Just a reminder that this will continue to be open. Thank you for participating in this presentation, and look forward to presenting this to the City Council on the 26th and moving the process forward. So thank you.